Earlier this week, President Biden signed a bipartisan resolution ending the U.S. COVID emergency. Now, that national emergency gave the government authority to implement policies that would help protect the nation as much as possible. But where are we now in the fight against COVID? Well, here to talk about that and more is Kirby Kruger. He's the section chief for the North Dakota Department of Health, Disease Control and Forensic Pathology. Kirby, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking during the break. This is the first time in a long time that we've had Kirby in studio because during the pandemic, the big wave, we had to talk to you by Zoom.
Yeah.
So, first question, we remember when things started shutting down compared to now. Are we where we should be?
We're in a much different place than we were back in March of 2020. That's for sure. We have vaccines that are available. We have a lot more immunity in our population, either from vaccine or from natural disease. We have vaccine that's widely available, and it's a good vaccine. And we have antivirals that are available. And our hospitals aren't feeling the pressure as they were earlier in the pandemic. So.
Now, since things have slowed down, I've heard comments, and I know others, some of my colleagues have heard comments like, COVID isn't a thing anymore. What's the prevalence of COVID in North Dakota today?
So the good news is that COVID cases have continued to decline. The reported cases have continued to decline. We have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt because testing has dropped off. More people are testing at home and more people are not testing at all or only testing if they're sick enough to go and see their doctor or something like that. So we have to take that with a grain of salt. But the good news is that they really have leveled off, and we've been running around 400 cases per week, and which is much better than what we were, at our peak. Our biggest peak was the Omicron peak. We had close to 16,000 cases that week, and so we really have come a long way. Having said that, COVID is still out there, and COVID can still cause serious disease, and it can still cause death, and so we want people to still be aware of that.
Sure, and of course, get more people vaccinated too.
Right, absolutely.
Speaking of that, let's take a look at some of the numbers now. Now we have the primary series here. We've got all the populations just above 50%, but if you look at the bivalent booster dose in the 20s, some down almost to 50% in the 65 and older. Are you happy with those numbers?
We would really love to see more people go in and get that bivalent booster. Absolutely. I think that the vaccine has shown to be very good at keeping people out of the hospital and keeping people from dying. And it may not be perfect in preventing disease because the virus changes a lot and immunity wanes, but it does a good job of keeping people from getting more serious disease.
Sure. Now, do you think all the messaging about COVID is out there? And if so, or if not, how do you get people to know just how important this is?
Well, I think, people probably are suffering from COVID fatigue, and they're wanting to move on, and they have moved on. But I think just making sure that they know that it's still there. This isn't going away, that this virus has the capability to change, and it changes rapidly, and that the vaccines, although they're good, they're not perfect, and so you need to keep on top of that. We do expect that ACIP may be making some recommendations in the near future on bivalent vaccines and boosters. So people just need to be aware that this is still happening, even though the numbers are down and we're in a much better place than we were at the beginning of the pandemic. The virus is still circulating.
So what else should people know from your end as far as COVID and like the lower numbers right now?
I think the other thing that we always are concerned about is people who are at higher risk of developing complications if they do get COVID, and making sure that they understand that the vaccine can help with that. But there's also antivirals available, and they've been shown to reduce the illness, the risk of serious illness. And so if people do become ill, having that talk with your healthcare provider about those antivirals is important too. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, as we said, you're here to talk about the numbers, why we're seeing them, and moving forward. And of course, the summertime's coming up, so people going on vacation. Any concern about that?
I think people just need to. CDC still does a great job of talking about community risk throughout the nation. And if you're traveling somewhere, you may want to just take a glance at what's happening in those areas and make sure that you have an understanding, and especially if you're at high risk for serious disease.
Sure. Kirby Kruger, thank you so much for the insight. We know that you and so many others have been working hard throughout all of this to kind of keep it to make sure that all of us keep us safe and to keep us informed. So we appreciate it because as we found out, we are certainly all in this together. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.